Hello everyone and welcome back to another episode of OMSI 2 The Bus Simulator, once again where you join me in Strathshire. Strathshire is, at the moment, at the time I film this, is my go-to map for doing sort of short shifts. If I've if I've got an evening free, and it's quite rare, but if I've got an evening free and I've got an hour or two, I'll do a couple of laps of the 28, the 25, something like that. I've changed the AI list, so they're all these lovely Veil Impact Eclipses, because, well, who wouldn't love flooring a Euro 4 or 5 B7 Eclipse round on an evening? So that's kind of what I do at the moment. We all have go-to maps from time to time. Sometimes mine is the West Country, sometimes it's Strathshire, sometimes it's even London. And at the moment it is Strathshire, as you can see. So I thought for this video, just something a little bit different, because it's the kind of thing that I do. I thought you better all join me, or you can all join me, should I say, for a trip up to the park and ride on the 28 service. So on an evening, the 28 frequency reduces, as you can see. The bus behind arrives in half an hour after we leave, so we're going to leave at 19:15 game time, and the 28 behind us arrives in at 8:20, comes into the city centre, and then, as you can see below, leaves at the exact same time, not in service. So we're starting just as the frequency reduces. We're driving BX61XCC, that is a Travel West Midlands, National Express West Midlands Eclipse in real life. However, here in my Strathshire, it's representing what was pre-NatX, or sort of pre-McGill, should I say, National Express in Dundee, where instead of it being Explore Dundee in green, it's Explore Strathshire in blue, thus where the reference is, because Explore Dundee used to be owned by National Express before McGill's bought it. So we'll get the bus started up. I do have to log into the ticketer. I have nabbed this bus off my AI list. I have some with the high back seating and the refurbished seating that are the ones that usually go on the park and ride, such as this one. So this one was originally on a park and ride duty that's ended up on the 28. And then I also have some with the older, more sort of the like National Express West Midlands seating that you tend to see, the bucket style seats that operate usually on the 28 and the 49. I also have two random Optare Spectras running around because I thought, well, why not? So we'll get the destination sorted. Now, what's quite nice about driving this bus is, unlike driving some of the other stuff, all the destinations work. So it is quite nice every so often to drive something where you can do all the realism, from sorting out your destination blind, to clicking all the buttons that you need, to logging in the ticket machine. It's quite nice. It is quite a nice thing to do. So I do, having driven these buses quite a lot, I do remember the passwords from time to time. I remember the second one, but the actual initial login ID can sometimes be a difficult one to remember. I'm quite thankful for this, because when I do forget the login details on the Renown, I do have to go into the PDF file to find them. So I am quite thankful that the post-it note there. My good friend Mr. Studio Polygon, if you are watching, for people like me with our shocking memories, a post-it note or potentially a little hidden note down here might be quite nice on the Renown from time to time. That's just personal preference though, as otherwise I do end up having to go in and out of the PDF a fair bit. That doesn't bother me, because it's a good read, but when I'm starting to film a video, it's a little bit annoying when I sort of get to that point and go, oh yes, I've forgotten how that works. So it would end up saving that in the long run. So hopefully we've got only a second or two to go. 26. We do leave here at past, and I don't want to leave early, because as soon as I set off, I will be a rocket ship. So if I can leave here on time, at least it means I'm not leaving as many people behind. So thankfully as well, for one of the first times in a fair bit, because it's a map that I drive quite regularly in my free time, I do know the route quite well. So let's put my knowledge to the test, make sure there's no element of it that I've forgotten. And it's bang on 1950, so let's make a move. So I have driven all sorts on the 28 in the past. I mean, we went through when it was the Manchester Strike Busters period, where Go North West hired in loads of operators to run their bus services when their drivers were on strike. We used a Kitano Levante triaxle on the 28 to sort of replicate that in Strathshire. That was a fun experience, trying to drive a long triaxle coach in here. However, with the steering how it is on them and it having a rear steering axle, it meant it was actually quite easy to get around the housing estate. It's a lot easier than you would expect. So there we go. So click the button. Brilliant. Does always help me when it works correctly. There we go. And that's everyone. So for this map, I do tend to have the passenger settings around mid-range, and I also find having ticket selling on slightly slows me down, so I don't end up running too early. When you're doing the night 25s and they are rather quiet, that can be an interesting experience, where you end up there about 5 minutes early. I do like this map. My only criticism is I would say you do get a little bit too much time at each end. I mean, in an ideal world, having the recovery time is amazing, but I do prefer timetables that are a little bit tighter and don't have as much turnaround time at each end for recovery. My favourite duty on this map at the moment is the afternoon X49 duty, because if you put your traffic setting up to full, you do the X49 up to Carmelite, you do a dead run to Strathshire, you do a X49 back to Carmelite again, that's usually late. But if you're usually about 15-20 minutes late, leaving on that, or sort of, basically what happens is when you do your first one up to Carmelite, you can end up quite late. You can end up about 20-25 minutes late. So when you get up to Carmelite, you give yourself about 10 minutes to get down all the way from Carmelite to Strathshire. Then if you have your traffic setting on quite high, it's quite a difficult task. So if you absolutely floor it, you do quite well. You only end up at about 5 minutes or so late on your next X49 run, and then usually that one, because of how the traffic flows in OMSI, does tend to be relatively quiet. So you tend to find that you catch up your time just in time for your final trip that only goes as far as Priestley Street on the 49 service, so you terminate at the depot. So it's quite a nice duty to do. I believe it starts on the 28th, if memory serves me correctly. Starts on the 28th, although I only ever do the X49 bit, because in between doing the 28 and doing the X49, the vehicle returns to the depot. So it's quite a nice way to sort of do it as like a split sort of late piece on that. The buttons aren't being as responsive as they usually are on this one today. I don't know why that is. That'll do. Only just made them, but that will do nicely. And we're running bang on time, that's quite surprising. You tend to, if you have a busy run out of the city centre on this route, you tend to either run late, or if you're quiet, you tend to run early. You never really manage to master running on time. Oh no, they're all in the wrong lane, but I'm still going to go into the right lane and most likely end up in front of them all. Oh, there we go, let's actually stop at the lights. There we go. Now, Strathshire is also one of the few maps that, minus the hospital, I like to drive in the dark because of the street lighting. You tend to find on some maps on OMSI, the lighting at night just isn't there. It isn't as it should be. It's always been a rather hit and miss aspect. And someone that likes to, in real life, do late, and then obviously in OMSI do late, it's obviously quite sad to sort of see there's some maps I can't drive when it turns dark. Now you have to do it during the middle of summer when it's light till about 8 or 9 o'clock, and then you finish because, oh, didn't mean to pop the horn, because otherwise it's a little bit dodgy driving in the dark, because there's some bits that there's no street lights when there would be in real life and things like that. So Strathshire is one of these that, as you can see, the lights are done very nicely. It's very well lit up, and it's realistically lit up. So you'll notice that some parts of the rural areas aren't lit up, like they would be in real life. Like you have to put your full beam lights on to see where you're going, and then you put your dipped on when you've got somebody coming towards you. But you've got the city areas that then, in contrast, it actually does as it should do. So you can actually see when realistically you would be able to see. So for me, that's a big difference. I mean, the only bit that lets it down on this map is the hospital. I don't like the hospital at all. I don't like how you drive in. It's incredibly tight. I would argue unrealistically tight for a hospital. I do know that some of them can be quite sus getting in and out of, but if you've got frequent bus services and obviously emergency service vehicles coming in and out, the roads would usually be a little bit wider than that than they are in the map, because obviously they want people to get out of the way if there's an ambulance coming and there's not anywhere for sort of cars and buses and trucks to go. So there is that, and then it's also the lighting side. As you will see in a bit, the hospital is, I would say, unrealistically dark. You would expect quite bright floodlights in a hospital, and I know that they're not available, but I still think the hospital's a little bit darker than it would be in real life, than you would realistically get a hospital. So we'll see anyway. I might have remembered it wrong, but this has also got to be one of the busiest evening 28s I've done. I think I might still have the passenger settings on slightly high peak time levels, if I'm entirely honest. And you want a 330. Okay. So there you go. And then I've got to remember here that on the 28 you go straight forward. Every other route turns left and goes into the bus lane. And I was driving on here, I think I did a 25 beforehand, and then ended up on the 28 with one of the duties that crossed over. And as you would expect, ended up turning left on the 28, and had to go into the hospital the other way around. That's not too much of an issue, because all you do is go down there and turn left, and you just omit this bus stop that pings off anyway when you turn left because you're close enough. But it does mean that you go through a number more of traffic light sets and go the longer way around, but then makes you late. Oh, this is quite nice. Green lights all the way. It makes a difference. Definitely makes a difference on this run. But yeah, if you look at this, it just... To say it's a hospital, there's no light whatsoever. It does feel very, very strange, like I would expect floodlights, or, I mean, even street lights along this section, and then potentially over the middle bits, floodlights. Let me know what you think in the comments. But it just feels really, really strange being in a hospital that doesn't have any light. I haven't visited a hospital, haven't had to, thank goodness, for a fair bit now. So I can't obviously remember what it's like at night, but I'm quite certain that it's not usually this dark. And for me, I love doing the 28s on an evening, but this is the one major letdown. One thing I am impressed though is so far I haven't clipped a curb at all. I've said that I will, but I am quite impressed with that, if I'm honest. Although usually when I'm driving this I'm late, so I usually end up absolutely flooring it round. But even then, I mean, with it being tight as well, I can barely see those curbs. I mean, yes, I'm driving in a room that's lit, so it's probably not assisting with the screen. But even then, you'd expect sort of to have the street lights like you did in the city centre. I mean, you can tell that I do these routes quite regularly, as I've just been round there and not clipped a single curb. That for a 12-metre long bus round here is a rather good achievement. Now I'm stopping where you should do, before they keep clear. That car, I imagine, was supposed to stop at the actual lights, but because of how this is set up, it basically means that when you're doing the 69A or the 69C and you have your traffic up quite a high level, you have absolutely no chance of pulling out of that junction without a car being in the way. Absolutely no chance. Now, I imagine that's a limitation of OMSI, but it is another reason why I do not like the hospital, because clearly it has been mapped out and been considered to put the keep clear there, and I imagine the air traffic was asked to go into that front section, and it hasn't. But even then, it is still, regardless of how it's worked and what went wrong, as I say, presumably OMSI 2AI, because it is old, it's another thing that just annoys me, because if the 69A and 69C didn't go up there and back down, I'd absolutely love driving them like I do at peak time, because they are nice routes. They are nice routes, and when you get stuck in all the traffic at peak time, it's quite funny. Because you just get stuck up at Carmilly and all of the traffic chaos and the nearby estates. And then by the time you've got out of all of that traffic, you're about half an hour late and you've missed an entire round trip that is rather realistic to how it is in real life. I have lost count of the alighting button on there. I do not keep track of it usually. I tried earlier, as you all saw, but I never keep a track of it. I kind of just cancel them all at the end of a trip if I remember. Or if it goes red, I've realised that I kind of haven't remembered to do it, and then usually end up doing it anyway. Now you're waiting to jump on this bus through a bus shelter. Okay. In fairness, we have done quite well for time on this run. It's kind of demonstrated that when you do have a healthy load and you are doing ticket selling, the timetable is possibly bang on. I mean, usually I just tend to find that either I get stuck in a load of traffic that makes me late, or if I have ticket selling on and hardly anybody's buying a ticket, or I don't have it on, I do tend to run early. So, I mean, I do also tend to run early on the 25s, because if I do have the passenger settings lower than this, that seems to be the perfect level for running bang for time. But if I do have them lower than this, I do tend to, that's when I tend to do the 25s, and I tend to be whizzing up and down like a lunatic, usually on the evening pieces at about 10 o'clock at night. Although I do feel that if the passenger levels were any higher about 10 o'clock at night going into the city centre, it would be rather unrealistic. Now it's about tucking yourself as close to the parked cars as you can, because I've found in the past, if something comes the other way, you can end up gridlocking the entire junction. Because with how big the bus is, if you don't tuck yourself in here, nothing can get past. Because of how the AI works, nothing can get past at all. The amount of times I've had to reverse because I've pulled forward thinking I can get through the lights have turned to red, the car in front stopped and there's been a parked car, and the bus has been rather tucked out. It's just not ideal. That's good, as that's a junction I did not want to sit at. There we go. Let's see, is that junction, or this junction I'm going over now, I hate sitting at. It's very, very rare you get lucky with that, very rare. So as first continue to get rid of their B7s, and I mean before long, now that it's such a weird thing to think, but now that the 07 plate Eclipses are pretty much the oldest Eclipses going in West Yorkshire once the Euro 4s have gone, or Euro 3 should I say, i.e. the B7RLE D7Cs and B7TL D7Cs, and once they've gone, the 07 Regs at Bradford are going to be the oldest buses in service with First West Yorkshire. That's going to be quite a strange thing to think about. So it's going to be quite weird to obviously see these all get withdrawn, the Eclipse 1s get withdrawn, and then eventually the Eclipse 2s. It'll hopefully be a fair few more years in the future. They've still got another decade or so in them. And then seeing them with other operators. It's something that you don't think about, because when you see them new, you don't think about it, and next thing you know, it's such an odd phenomenon to see them running around with other companies, or even being scrapped. This would be quite a strange one. But there we go. So we are now at the park and ride site on the 28. Usually with 12 minutes to go, I would reverse the bus into the parking spot in front of that coach. But for the purposes of this video looking as good as it did, with my driving being pretty decent, apart from that guy walking through my bus, I don't kind of want to mess up in the end and end up reversing the bus into the ditch. So we'll leave it there. I do hope you've enjoyed this video. If you have done, do be sure to click that like button so that more people can find it and enjoy like you have. And if you haven't already, do be sure to subscribe to the And More Bus Videos YouTube channel for more content like this from the OMSI 2 simulation section, as well as hopefully other games to come. I am planning that section, and I've got quite a lot going on in the sort of offline life at the moment, so I've not had time to do all the prep for stuff like that. However, hopefully the free time is coming up very soon for me to start to be able to do that. For now though, I really hope you've enjoyed this one, and I will see you all in the next video, mate. Goodbye for now. Bye.